to Truth or Fake. Truth or Fake, of course, our fact-checking segment over by the big board. We find this evening Charlotte Hughes. Charlotte, a very good evening to you. After the deployment of the National Guard to Los Angeles and in Washington, D.C., Donald J. Trump is seeking a wider role for the National Guard in law enforcement. The US president justifying the deployment in the capital by making a series of claims about the level of crime there. Now, he said it was higher than ever. Truth or fake? Tell us.
Yes, Mark, Trump indeed looks intent on expanding the US military's role in domestic law enforcement across the country. So on Monday, he actually signed an executive order tasking his Secretary of Defense with creating specialized units in the National Guard that will be, I quote, specifically trained and equipped to deal with public order issues. This comes, as you say, after the deployment of National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. earlier this month, with Trump justifying the move by making a series of claims about crime in the city. So let's take a look at some of those remarks that he made earlier this month. So a official White House statement here, he is claiming that crime is out of control in D.C. He says the magnitude of the violent crime crisis places D.C. among the most violent jurisdictions in the United States. He goes on to claim here, later on in the statement, in 2024, D.C. averaged one of the highest robbery and murder rates of large cities nationwide. Indeed, he goes on, the D.C. now has a higher violent crime, murder and robbery rates than all 50 states. And this echoes an earlier claim he made on his Truth social platform back in August, where he said that crime, I quote, in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Now, just yesterday, Mark, Trump announced that his administration plans to seek the death penalty in all murder cases in the city. He claims that it would be a preventative measure, and I quote, he says, "We have no other choice given the situation on our hands."
Charlotte, tell us then, how accurate are the claims being made by the US President Donald J. Trump?
Well, Mark, Trump's claims don't tell the whole story. If we take a quick glance at crime rates in the city, now these are approximations, I should add, it does appear that Trump is right at an initial glance. Crime rates in the city are indeed high. Now, according to several bodies, including the FBI and the Center for Public Safety Initiatives, back in 2023, compared to the 50 US states, the US Capitol was indeed one of the most dangerous areas, with a murder rate of 39 for every 100,000 inhabitants. Now, one of Trump's claims in particular, though, that is, I would say, exaggerated, is that crime in DC in 2023 reached its highest rate, I quote, probably ever. However, the city's crime statistics from the 70s, the 80s and the 90s actually indicate that there were back then much higher rates of homicide. There were 498 homicides reported in 1990, for instance, and in the following year, there were 509 that were reported. Now, I should add, Mark, that this was, during those decades, the population in the city was a lot smaller, as we can see on this graph. So back then, the crime rates were significantly higher. Another of Trump's claims about violent crime in Washington, D.C. is, as I quote, "It's getting worse and it's not getting better." But figures released by Washington's Metropolitan Police show that violent crime has actually dropped in Washington following a post-pandemic spike 2 years ago. According to this data, robberies, burglaries and homicides have decreased this year in comparison to 2024. On the whole, according to this data, violent crime has fallen by 27% compared with this time a year ago. Furthermore, a Department of Justice report released earlier this year shows that violent crime in DC has fallen by 35% since 2023. And according to this report, the city's violent crime rate has hit its lowest in 3 decades. Now, some Trump supporters have alleged that officials modified some of those numbers that I quoted, but the city's mayor, Muriel Bowser, she stands by the data, and she has insisted that the picture that Trump paints is very much exaggerated. Her comments are also supported by statistics released by the Independent Council on Criminal Justice, which again indicates that violent crime in the city has fallen. Finally, Mark, something that I found very interesting is that unlike Trump, the AI bot on his Truth Social platform comes up with a very nuanced response to the question, is crime in Washington, D.C. out of control? So as you can see here, in response to that question, it claims D.C. had a severe crime peak in 2023, but 2025 data show significant declines so far. And it concludes, describing crime as out of control today overstates the current downward trend. Mark.
So do you think then, Charlotte, that given that his own bot has contradicted him, Donald Trump will now sack his own social media bot? Do you think he'll take some action like that?
Definitely a possibility. Who knows?
Who knows? He tends to sack anybody who disagrees with him, doesn't he? So we will wait and see. Charlotte, thank you very much indeed. Charlotte Hughes there with Truth or Fake. Great to see you. And thank you for giving the lie to those claims by President Donald J. Trump.